So, if I think about it, I don't think I can think of a more hyped film in my entire life. Maybe The Deathly Hallows Part 2 comes close, but nothing I've ever seen created this much excitement on the internet and around the world. I am of course talking about Star Wars 7 The Force Awakens. This came out about a month ago now. I know it was a long time ago, but everything that could have possibly gone wrong with cameras and microphones did, so I've had to wait. Because it came out so long ago, I think it's very safe now to talk about spoilers. If you haven't seen it, why the hell not? Like, really? Why? Go away and watch it immediately and then come back and watch this. I went to watch this film on the day it was released with very few expectations. I always liked the Star Wars films when I was younger and never really had a problem with the prequels. Please don't kill me. I actually watched the prequels before I watched the originals, and as such didn't have anything to compare them against, and so wasn't disappointed. I thought they were a pretty good standalone action trilogy. Obviously, I completely understand the disappointment that must have been felt from people who had watched the originals first, because some bits were ridiculous, and other scenes were just really long and boring. But that's what the fast forward button's for. Apart from the very first time I watched them, I don't think I ever sat through an entire Star Wars prequel without fast-forwarding the really boring council meetings, the bits in the Senate, and that thing where the Emperor explains this really long story about the Sith Lords to Anakin.
I'm not sure I understand.
You must sense what I have come to suspect. They asked you to do something that made you feel dishonest, didn't they? Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi.
Who cares? Just fight on a volcano. That's what we came to see. When I did see the originals, I must admit, the first time I was disappointed. Probably because I was so used to the overkill action scenes from the prequels, but also because they were old films. And how many 8-year-olds want to watch old films with bad CGI? Now I'm slightly older, I realised that these were really good films, especially the first two. We'll try and gloss over the one with the bears where they throw rocks at stormtroopers. So basically what I'm saying is that everybody wanted episode 7 to be good. And like Spectre, I have to say it wasn't. It was amazing. I haven't really seen anything Star Wars related for about 4 years before I went to see this. And as such I was excited, but I wasn't drowning in my own saliva. When I walked out of the cinema, I wanted to go home and rewatch every single Star Wars, even the boring ones, even the boring bits in the boring ones, just to try and keep that feeling of excitement alive that I got from Star Wars Episode 7. Let's start with the look of the film. Wow! To be honest, I never really had any worries about how it would look because I, like millions of others, watched the trailers for this film. From the very first trailer with the X-Wings, I was so excited. The Millennium Falcon flying through the desert looked even better than it did in the trailers, and the crashed Star Cruiser on Jakku is stunning, and the shot of the Star Cruiser just floating in space, I cannot get out of my mind. And I'm not sure I want to. Some of the graphics and imagery in this film are as groundbreaking now as the first Star Wars was back then, and that is saying something. One of the best things about this film was that JJ didn't want to mass produce a load of CGI extras to sit in the background looking, let's be honest, crap. Instead, he very much takes it back to the feeling of the canteen on Tatooine in the first film. Lots of costumes and prop heads and makeup. It just looked brilliant. This is particularly noticeable with the scene with Maz Kanata in her diner, with all of the people walking around. It just... wow. So good. Having said that, Maz is completely CGI'd, and so is Supreme Leader Snoke. And that weird looking guy from the very first scenes that gives Rey the little packet things that turn into cupcakes. And you really do notice it. In many ways they have to be because of the way they look. You can't just throw a load of makeup on them and it'll all turn out fine. But I didn't really see the problem of just getting regular actors to play them. It wouldn't have made any difference to the story or make it any worse. I don't think it would have really been a problem if they managed to recreate the realism of the apes in Planet of the Apes, or Gollum from The Hobbits. However, in those films I completely believed that the apes and Gollum were real. In the Star Wars films, these are very obviously computer-generated characters. On the topic of CGI, JJ made a point to have as few CGI explosions as possible. Most of what you see on screen is genuine explosions, and fire, and sand flying. And oh my god, it looks fantastic. Just as Mad Max proved, the more genuine the effects, the more genuine the movie feels. And they certainly made a huge difference to this end product. The characters and the way the characters are portrayed, bloody hell! Daisy Ridley? How did you go from being like practically an extra on Casualty to being one of the best characters, in my opinion, the best Star Wars? She was incredible. Like, unless you've actually seen this movie, you won't fully appreciate how captivating her performance was. One of the best things about this is that nobody expected it at all. Let's be honest, Star Wars isn't known for its great acting.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
JJ reportedly said that on the first day of shooting, Daisy Ridley was very, very wooden in everything she was doing. So again, I wasn't expecting any good acting. But oh my god. And it wasn't just her. Harrison Ford gave the best performance that he's given since Indiana Jones. The third one. We're going to pretend Crystal Skull never happened. Carrie Fisher is also stunning throughout, and their chemistry in the film is beautiful. You can really see that the events of the past with their son Ben Solo or Kylo Ren and Luke have really scarred them and left them emotional wrecks. But to an extent, we sort of expected that because we do know that they can act to a pretty good standard as we saw in the originals. But what made me so happy was all of the characters that we were introduced to. I saw John Boyega in Attack the Block when it first came out and thought he was really safe and slow in his acting, and as such again was very worried about him being in a Star Wars movie. Bloody hell, I can't be more wrong about any of them. The conversion from Stormtrooper to Resistance member I completely believed, and his friendship with Poe, played by Oscar Isaac, I cannot wait to see develop in the coming films. Now, Adam Driver. I am a firm believer that a movie is only as good as its bad guy. We saw that in Harry Potter with Voldemort and Bellatrix Lestrange, and in The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger's Joker. Adam Driver as Kylo Ren is one of the most amazing villains I have ever seen in film. He is pure evil. Like, pure evil. But you connect with him. You understand why he's doing it, and as such, care about him. The way he sits staring at Darth Vader's mask at the start of the film really gives you an insight into how conflicted he is. Snoke has obviously messed with his mind so much that he doesn't understand right from wrong anymore. The moment he takes off his mask confronting Rey is great. If you were like me going into this film not really knowing anything about it, you might have been expecting like a badass scarred face underneath this mask. But instead, Adam Driver's just a normal looking guy. Maybe you were even expecting Luke Skywalker, but I definitely don't think you were expecting Adam Driver. Because he's a normal guy, you're like, oh my god, now I understand Han and Leia's pain. And because of that, it makes it even more heartbreaking when he stabs Han Solo through the chest with a lightsaber. Spoilers. Told you. If I had to be critical about anything, it would be the casting of Domhnall Gleeson as the evil General Hux. I saw Domhnall Gleeson in About Time and Ex Machina, and he is one of the least threatening people. So seeing him playing one of the most threatening characters in this didn't quite sit right with me in my head. The story I loved from start to finish. Every detail of the plot was masterfully constructed, and exactly what we wanted as fans, whilst giving us some new stuff as well. There has been some criticism that it was a little bit too similar to the first Star Wars, and yes, it's another Death Star, and yes, main characters get killed in front of the new hero. But I disagree. I think it was just the right balance between nostalgia and new material. It was really funny as well. Something I definitely didn't expect from a Star Wars film was just quite how many times I would laugh. BB-8 is probably my favourite introduction of all of the characters. He is so cute and so funny. The scene where he gives thumbs up to Rey with his lighter is fantastic, and the bit where he's zapping Finn on the floor, I laughed so hard. The way they introduced the Millennium Falcon as a pile of junk is a masterful and brilliant way to bring everybody's favourite spaceship back into the franchise. It is by no means a comedy, but it again strikes a perfect balance between laugh out loud and the serious tone we all expected from this movie. So what are the problems with this film? First, Snoke looks stupid. I know it was a hologram and he's not actually a 50-foot monster, but if he is going to be, as they're sort of suggesting, a main part of this trilogy, I really hope they change him slightly, because we've seen lightsaber battles with CGI characters, and they don't work. Captain Phasma, when I first saw her in the cinema, I actually said out loud, "Wow, she looks cool." Then she proceeded to do absolutely nothing. Wait, no, that's not fair. She gave Han and Finn the code to deactivate the shield because they asked nicely. I know it's early days again, but I really hope that we get to see more of her in the coming 2 films. Really hope. Please, she's such a cool character. Luke wasn't in it enough. Don't get me wrong, I actually really like the way they did it in the end, but I wouldn't have been complaining if he was in it slightly more. The bit where Kylo Ren is force pulling the lightsaber towards him and then it flies past his face, every bone in my body wanted Luke Skywalker to catch it. As it happens, Rey catches it and it turns into quite a cool lightsaber fight, but if Luke had caught it, that would have been so cool. Which brings me on to the biggest flaw really. Rey is so overpowered for somebody who only about an hour ago in film time thought that the Jedi were a complete myth. There is speculation that she's Luke's daughter, which would make sense in terms of her OP power, but absolutely no sense as to why he left her on Jakku. That moment where she's getting completely hammered by Kylo Ren and then says, "The Force," and suddenly turns into a badass and completely kicks this Sith Lord's butt. Huh? And my final complaint is, when did lightsabers stop killing people? Like, Kylo Ren got slashed to pieces, Finn got a lightsaber straight up his spine, and both of them are fine. All I really have to say about the flaws to this film are who cares? If you watch my favourite films of 15 video, you will know that this was my favourite film of 2015. And I don't care that it had a few little plot holes, because every film does. It was so much fun to watch, and I would happily watch it again. It was without a doubt my favourite movie of the year, and as such, I'm gonna give it a 91. And a plea to anybody who hasn't seen this and maybe doesn't like Star Wars. Go see it anyway. It is brilliant and will blow your mind. It's time for the film wall, and there we go, all the way up here, Star Wars Episode 7 with 91. Above the Revenant, moving down we have Spectre, then the Good Dinosaur, and all the way down here we have the Mockingjay Part 1.